Today's episode of the Influencer Empires podcast is brought to you by the Empire Program with White Label Suite, powering our influencers and building their empires. Ladies and gents, welcome to the show. Today we have an absolute powerhouse, and I use that word effectively. She's running Powerhouse AI, which is a community for entrepreneurs to help build AI followings with AI tech and bridging the gap between humans and technology. She's also a speaker. She is sought after all around the world. She is an entrepreneur and a leader. She's speaking to thousands of people across multiple platforms, and she has her start all the way back in advertising, now running AI companies with Bot Leads AI. She's also licensed the Ideal Client Handbook, which is an incredible AI technology helping people understand their audiences, and of course the Powerhouse AI brand. As I mentioned, she is an incredible leader in the AI space, in the coaching and entrepreneurial space, and it really gives me great pleasure to welcome Amy Yamada. Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I've been so looking forward to this. I'm sure we'll have a great conversation today.
I am looking forward to it as well. So, doing a little bit of research, you've come from kind of an advertising background. Now you're really powering up with leadership, with entrepreneurial enablement. How did you transition from kind of the 9 to 5 employee to now, I guess, leading people and helping people understand their own futures?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think back to my journey of when I worked in corporate, for about 15 years, and I could have easily stayed on that track for the rest of my career.
Mm.
But I believe deep down inside, entrepreneurs have that pull. Like there's something within you when you're truly like you have that entrepreneurial spirit that's like there's something different and better for you. And there's nothing against corporate. It's just there was definitely a calling within me, and I after I'd been in that career for such a long time, I started looking at, okay, what is my next growth opportunity? Do I want to be in some kind of a management or a C-level position? And I would look at the people in those positions who were exhausted and working crazy hours and never saw their families. And I thought, I don't want to be them, or I don't want to be myself in those offices, no matter the view of the office. I'm like, I just don't want that. And so I started to do some soul searching, and just on a vulnerable level, I think sometimes it takes a life awakening experience. And back in 2010, sadly, my mom passed away, and it just woke me up, and it made me realize that this life is not forever, and it's very precious. And that had me really take a hard look at my life and think about, where am I not feeling totally fulfilled? And I knew that part of it was my career, and it was time to go off on my own. So
Wow.
it was the best decision that I have probably ever made in as far as my career goes. And I haven't looked back since.
I love it. And every entrepreneur will tell you, of course, that from that moment, it's all been smooth sailing, right? It's been easy, cotton candy, breezes. I'm sure that's been the case. Am I right?
Totally. Every minute has been just
Every minute.
perfect and great, and everything I planned went so smoothly. No, it's definitely one of the hardest things I think I've ever done as well. It's like you create a plan and you think you know what you're doing, or at least some of us do. I certainly did. And I think I also admittedly had a little bit of an ego going on, thinking, oh, I worked in corporate and I've consulted so many businesses on their marketing and business growth and advertising. Surely I will have that advantage as I launch my own business. But it was totally different launching my own and finding my path, and yeah, there's definitely been highs and lows over the years, and I've had my business for a little over 13 years now, and you grow through it if you choose to, and I've learned from every difficult or challenging situation I've ever faced as an entrepreneur. And I think so much of it, as just like in life, is about mindset. It's like, how
Yeah.
do you approach those experiences? How do you show up for them versus freaking out and being reactive, which I've certainly had those moments too. But I think once you've done it for as long as I have, you kind of realize that, okay, there are going to be peaks and valleys, and that's okay. It's just about deepening my trust in myself, that when the challenging things come up, that I can face them and walk through them and grow through them.
Nice. So, what were some of those early challenges, Amy, as you were venturing out on
Yeah.
your own? All of us as entrepreneurs, we start with zero clients, and we're trying to get that first one through the door, get that idea up to fruition, and launch that channel or whatever it might be. What were some of those early challenges for you that you can remember 13 years ago?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I remember back then, I wasn't totally clear on what direction I wanted to go. I wasn't totally clear on my message or even who I wanted to work with. And so some of those foundational elements were just not in place. And so when I look back now, I remember putting a lot of effort and time and money into launching my first version of my website
Mm.
and and thinking about that navigation bar at the top, like, well, what do I offer? And I remember working with a web designer, and I was like, well, I want to do retreats, and I want to do business coaching and marketing consulting, and maybe some life coaching too. Like I said, I mean, my navigation bar was like two rows because I wanted to offer all these things. And like looking back now, there's been times I'm like, oh man, I was such a hot mess with my message. It was all over the place. Although my one of my very best friends, she said, Amy, she's like, you were experimenting and that's okay. At least you started
Yeah.
so you could figure out what direction you wanted to go. And so I'm like, okay, I will reframe that and say, I was experimenting, Walt. I was experimenting while I was
Nice. That's a
like,
great
you know.
reframe, by the way. That's
And and it is, instead of being in some kind of, shaming myself for being all over the place, which was the true feeling that I had at the time. But I did experiment. I did try a lot of different things early on because I wasn't totally clear about the direction I wanted to go. And
mm,
so as I started experimenting with, working with different types of clients, which early on I didn't have any kind of a following. So I attracted these earlier on clients by doing what I knew best, which was networking locally here in the Seattle area, going to events and meeting people and setting up appointments and setting up calls. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I just might attract a client. And so those were my kind of early days.
well,
That was
obviously it
the
worked. I
strategy.
mean, when did you feel like you had a message that you started, starting from that kind of everything
Yeah.
everywhere all at once kind of feeling to going, all right, I actually now know who Amy Yamada is. I know what I present and I know who I serve. When did that happen for you?
Still figuring some of it out, but
Sure.
but as far as my business goes, it really happened kind of slowly over time early on, where I was in a mastermind community of entrepreneurs, and we were all kind of learning how to grow our visibility and to gain clarity on our offers and all of that. And one thing that I was doing was following the steps of, growing my email list and then nurturing that email list. And so I started to send these emails out on a regular basis, and I would get a ton of responses. And I thought, well, I'm following the steps of the mentor that's teaching me this, so of course this is what happens, right?
Mm,
However, my colleagues in this mastermind, these other new entrepreneurs, were sending out emails to the list and getting crickets. And I was like, what? I'm like, I'm getting a ton of responses. Like if I send an email with a link to book a call with me to help them with growing their business, then my calendar was full. And so they're like, Amy, how are you doing that? I'm like, I don't know, I'm just sending emails out and sending a link and then they're booking calls. And so they would show me their emails and I'd say, let me just see what you're sending them. And I would see their emails. I'm like, oh, you're just not connecting deeply enough. Like these emails are very bland and they're not connecting with the person. And they
mm,
sound like a lot of other marketing emails that are out there. So of course people are not responding. I wouldn't respond to this. And when I see you as a person, you're this amazing person who's really good at whatever their thing is. And then when I read your email, it's a totally different voice and a totally different person that sounds like you're just trying to market to me and I'm not going to respond. So I started to see that I didn't think it was a gift at all. It's like, this is just what you do. And so I started to share with my colleagues how I was coming up with this copy. And this is, of course, way before AI. And then like, oh, so you have a system? Like, I don't have a system. And a dear friend of mine to this day, her name's Tracy. She said, no, I can tell you have a system because you started walking me through like, what do you do when you sit down to write an email? I'm like, well, I think about one person that I want to write to. Then I think about what is my goal of this email? What's the purpose of it? Then I think about what is it that they're thinking? So I started breaking it down and I realized I did have a system within me. And so I started to share that. And then that evolved over time. And so not just in email marketing, but really knowing how to deeply connect with your ideal client through your words, through your message, and through like vulnerability and empathy. And so that's kind of how I started to see, oh, I have a gift here just by helping my friends and colleagues. And I started to be able to help my clients out. And it was neat to see that what worked for me was also working for them as a framework. So it's pretty exciting.
nice. Super
Yeah.
cool. And when did it occur to you that, oh my God, I've got a following here. I've got people who are like, I mean, I'm looking at your LinkedIn, your Instagram, your Facebook group, the 10,000 people plus on your email list. Like, when did you actually go, whoa, take a sip of my glass of wine for a second, because I got people listening to me. Like, how did that happen for you mentally?
Um, I think it was once I started to really grow my online visibility through growing my email list because
Mm.
as I started doing virtual events like summits and collaborative events, then it wasn't just me promoting me. There were all these other experts also promoting my event, which ultimately was growing my email list and my visibility. And so just seeing these entrepreneurs that I had, at one point put on pedestals and was like, oh, like they're promoting me. Like, this is great, or my event at least, so people are starting to align me with them. And so I think once I started to grow my email list and grow my following and start to get those responses from the emails, I'm like, oh, people actually care about what I have to say. And then I realized it's actually not about me, it's about them seeing that I can help them, right? That
Mm.
was definitely another shift, was like, I want them to hear my voice, my message. It's like, well, yes, that's important, but what's most important is that I'm speaking their language and helping them because they're not going to be interested if there's nothing in it for them. They don't know
Yeah.
who I am. So it's about that value.
Nice. So multiple times you've mentioned masterminds or colleagues and connections or running in an event. There's a lot of collaboration here. So this is away from the kind of solopreneur, I guess, pedestal that we hold people up on, self-made, away you go. From what you're saying, like a lot of the growth that you've experienced has come in the company of other like-minded people. Is that a fair comment?
That's a fair comment. Yes. And at this point I've experimented with so many different ways of client attraction, everything from, organic social media to collaborating with partners and colleagues and to doing virtual events together or even in-person events together. I've done different types of ad campaigns and funnels and all of that. There was one year where I spent so much time and money on, Facebook ads and Instagram ads, and those can be effective too. But I also found that the way that lit me up the most for client attraction has been through collaborations.
Mm.
And it's a reflection of, I think, who I am and my passion for people and building relationships. And so, and I'm not saying that that's the best way, that's just the best way for me. And so with entrepreneurs, I always tell them, anytime there's a business coach who says, you have to do it this one way, I'm like, I call BS on that because you can look at a lot of successful entrepreneurs and their paths are also different. And so I am always coaching my clients and saying, let's choose the most aligned path because that's the one that you're energetically going to be most enrolled in doing versus the thing that you hate. And for me, it's collaboration. For me, it's speaking, it's connecting, it's connecting live with an audience. And so once I discovered that, I realized, gosh, authenticity is everything. If I'm not aligned with a strategy, which I've certainly done in the past, then I'll probably sabotage it somehow, even if it's subconscious. So I
Mm.
just think find the aligned path. Don't get caught up in what everybody else is doing, or there might even be someone that you really admire, but their strategy or path doesn't align with you, then don't do it. If you hate being on camera, then don't be on camera, right? If you hate speaking live on stages, don't do that. But if you love it, go all in on it and have fun with it and do what aligns with you.
Nice. You used a word there, which is something that comes up a lot when we're talking to influencers and people with those tribes, and that's the word authentic. As you're creating content across the different platforms that you have, are you aware of the message that you're talking about, or is it intrinsic? Are you just sharing what's inside of you, or are you approaching everything with a purpose?
It's actually a combination of the two. I mean, I
Mm.
I definitely love having an intuitive approach to my marketing, and at the same time, I'm fascinated by studying other people, like even just in life. And so, when I'm a consistent student of my ideal client, which has evolved over the years, then I like to really go deep on who is this person, and what are they about? What lights them up? What do they want? What do they struggle with? And how can I best speak to that person? And so over the years, I've really focused on market research and gaining those insights. And now we have our tool, the Ideal Client Handbook, that does all of it for us. And I found that from across the board, if we can speak the language of the client, the way in which they describe their desires and their fears and their frustrations and their limiting beliefs, then we will make it so much easier to attract the dream clients that we want to work with versus just focusing on, well, this is what I want to talk about. It's like, well, okay, that's great. Is that a topic or a theme that is relevant and engaging for your ideal client right now? Or is that just something that you want to be on your soapbox about because you're passionate about it? And sometimes
Right.
they can be the same, right? There are
Yeah.
times when it can overlap, but let's just make sure that we're not just all about ourselves and that we're always thinking about what is the ideal client thinking? What is it that they want in using their language?
Nice. And is there like do you have a schedule for your content? Are you thinking, right, Tuesdays is Instagram day, I've got to write an article for LinkedIn on Fridays? Like what's your methodology for producing the content that you do?
Yeah, my methodology is team.
Right, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so when I used to focus when I was just me, when I was a solo entrepreneur, I got into the habit of I think initially sending out at least one kind of value email per week and then maybe one promotional email. So I was trying to get on a rhythm of twice per week. But really these days, in order to really stand out, we've got to be more consistent, in my opinion, and frequent of getting in front of our ideal clients.
Mm,
And I really realized over time that I love being the visionary of my company. I do like creating copy, and sometimes I still write it on my own. Oftentimes I use AI the way in which we use it with the Ideal Client Handbook, and we've got some AI tools that we use that we've developed that just make that process easier and still authentic. But my point is having in my case, a woman who used to be my project manager, then she evolved to becoming my business manager. She is the one who's very detail oriented. And so we map out what I call my big picture plan for the year. So like what's the bigger focus of the year? And then we focus on each month, having like what are the main top three objectives for the month? And then what is the content that aligns with that from a marketing perspective and from a building a relationship with our audience and growing the audience perspective. So once she has the big vision, she's the one who breaks it down into smaller steps and then delegates it to the different team members that I have now.
beautiful.
That way I know what my obligations are, my tasks are that are for the copy that we put out there in the world. So,
Nice.
and then
And then
and
and
then
then
they
it's
schedule it. Yeah.
perfect. I love that saying where Frank Sinatra didn't move his own pianos, right? So he just turned up and performed. So you've got the team, moving all the stuff around, and then you get to just turn up and do your thing, which is really great. Do you have a preference on a medium? Are you a video person? Are you an email list? Like I know that email list is a really big central part of your business, but
Yeah.
are you a preference on a platform?
Yeah, I would say my email list has been the most consistent kind of platform. I know people always think of email as a platform, but what I've loved about email is that it still is relevant. Sometimes people say, "Oh, email is dead." I'm like, email is the reason why people like show up at my live workshops and webinars and virtual
Mm,
events. Social media definitely helps as well, but we don't own social media, whereas we own our email list. So if any of the social media platforms at any point in time change their algorithms or do something then we have no control over it. And I like having control over my business. So,
right, right.
so I still truly believe in having a solid email list. And while I do have a following online, I don't have the biggest following. And I don't necessarily focus on the biggest, like we focus on quality of the people that follow us.
Mm,
Because sometimes I've noticed that the people that have the largest following don't always have the deepest engagement. So, for example, if I'm one of multiple speakers for somebody else's launch or collaborative event, even if I don't have the biggest email list or following, I tend to be high up in the kind of leaderboard of who's sending the most people to this launch. And
mm,
I believe truly it's because I keep an engaged relationship with my audience. Whereas some that, I think it's great that they have hundreds of thousands of people, if not more, that follow them, but they may not have that depth of relationship. And some do. I don't want to be limited in saying that you can't have both, but to bring it all the way back, this is the year that we do want to expand my visibility. And so we're working on now a YouTube plan. So I'm not there yet on YouTube, but we realized that YouTube is still a great platform for having videos that become a part of a search engine opportunity, right? Where people are looking for the very thing you're talking about. And then they live forever, right? So I
yeah.
love that concept. And you can, of course, repurpose those videos into all these other mediums. So our next big step is to expand my visibility that way. And but my if I were to say my favorite platform, it's live stages. It's like either
Nice.
in-person live stages or live virtual kind of stages,
Hmm.
because I love connecting with a live audience and pouring value into them and having that collective energy. It's my favorite.
Perfect. I love it. I think it from a business point of view, you mentioned there that it's better to have that engagement of a few than the I guess noise of many, being able to connect there. Do you ever find you were saying that you're not in the big numbers there with the different platforms. I disagree. You've got a serious following there. Do you ever find the feedback overwhelming? How do you deal with thousands of people that are hearing your message and feeding back to you. Is that again something that you deal with personally? Do you delegate that out to the team? How do you handle that?
I delegate that out. I mean, I used to have everything on my shoulders, and I used to think, oh, well, I can't hire somebody because I don't have the budget for it. And then the first time I brought on a virtual assistant, I remember this. Her name was Susan, and I hired Susan for a $500 contract. I scraped together $500, and I was like, okay, can you help me coordinate and produce this virtual event? And so I'll do certain things, you'll do certain things, just to see what it was like to delegate things off my list and have somebody else take care of it. And it was my kind of just taking that first step into hiring a team member, and it worked out so well. She ended up working for me for about 10 years,
Mm,
and before she was ready for another thing, but we're still friends to this day. But it was a really big eye opener of thinking about what am I most passionate about in terms of the work that I love spending time on, versus being in the weeds. And some people
right.
love being in the weeds and they like the analytical side of things and the metrics. So yeah, so I delegate a lot out so I can keep my energy focused and high on what it is that I like working on. So
Perfect.
yeah, so I have a team that handles
I,
that.
I,
And I
I still
still do
remember.
respond sometimes, but they'll filter through, and then I'll get the forwarded email or message where I'm considered the only one who can answer it or can answer it best. So I still do respond to those people, but
Nice. Okay.
yeah.
I just see the volume, like some of the influencers that we've spoken to with, millions of subscribers and that kind of stuff. It's like, how do you deal with the commentary? It's just it's crazy. But I remember the first time I got a team member as well. To me, it was a life change. So super, super cool. If you had to start again, Amy, like now that you know what you know, right? So you've had 13 years experience of being an entrepreneur, being a leader in this space, of connecting with amazing audiences. Do you feel like you could grow the following again quickly if you lost everything?
Yes, definitely.
How would you
And
do that?
I would start with gaining clarity on who is my ideal client now, right? Like from today's vantage point, knowing what I know, who is my person? I always start with that because it's about serving them. And if I'm clear on who the ideal client is and I know what is it that they want, what is it they struggle with, and how can I best help them, then that can create an initial message, a marketing message, an authentic message, and then we can build everything on top of that. And that
Cool.
was what I did not have early on. I
Yeah.
was experimenting with all the things, so with lots of different ideal clients, and so I just didn't have that focus and clarity. Yeah.
So starting with that ideal client profile, as we said, just making sure that you've got that dialed in, understanding their message. What would be your go-to strategy if you had to rebuild the corporation that you've got today? You had to get that following, you had to get that engagement back up again, you had to recreate. What would be your 90-day sprint to get that underway?
It's a great question. Um, okay, so getting clear with my ideal client. If I, well, when I think back to when I first started, I needed money quickly.
Hmm.
So that there was that. If I needed money quickly, I would create one high ticket private coaching or consulting package, and I would sell it to like five people. I would think about who do I already know, because even before I had a following, I did have some high ticket paying clients, and so I would get the cash flow going just so I wasn't stressed about that. And then I would focus on leveraging AI. We've really been focusing on AI the last 2.5 or so years, and think about how can I leverage AI to expand my visibility quickly. And like I said, even now, knowing what I know now, we are expanding with YouTube and seeing like, could I get a YouTube channel up and running and then repurpose that, leveraging AI and some of these tools where it can, like Opus and some of these tools that can put it into shorter videos and then repurpose it everywhere, for that visibility. And I would continue to focus on collaborations. So I would put together probably a virtual collaborative event and grow my email list again. Like because like I said, I still believe in having a solid email list because that's what has helped to fill all my online workshops and my programs and my private coaching spots and my VIP days and my retreats. It's like I can't imagine doing what I do without an email list. And maybe someday that'll change. I've
Yeah,
I've been thinking
maybe.
about how like still feels like, gosh, email's been around forever. Like, how is it still effective? But it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I would continue to do collaborations. But yeah,
Cool.
now
Sounds like a
now we
busy
can
90
all do it
days.
fast with AI. What's that?
Sounds like a busy 90 days. I mean,
Yeah, it would be a busy 9 days, but I
it'll be,
think
it'll be a sprint.
it would be a sprint. But gain clarity on ideal client, gain clarity on your offer, What is most important? Is it financial or is it visibility? Like if you're set financially or comfortable financially and you're just like, no, I'm good there. I just want to focus on visibility, then I would leverage AI to come up with a visibility plan based on who I am and what I'm about and what platforms I want to leverage. And then I would just go all in on that plan. And then I would also use AI for accountability. And if that didn't work totally, then of course I still believe in human coaches. So find a human mentor that you align with and either become a private client or join one of their group programs and like really be inspired by them and the community to rise up together. So I would do that.
How would you use AI for accountability? That's interesting for me.
Yeah, it's something I started doing just last year, and it's been incredible. Well, we've been building out our own custom GPTs, and we have one in particular that I use almost daily. And basically, I just have let it know, like, okay, here's my goal for this month. Here's what I already have that I'm working on. Here's what I'm working towards. And then I always think about how do I want to improve myself as a human, right? Like,
Mm.
I also want to do things with more ease and grace and flow while, putting in the work but also trusting myself that if things go sideways, that I can handle it. And so by checking in daily with this specific custom GPT, and because it will kind of reflect my personality as well, and it's programmed to be um, like supportive and empathetic and understanding and offer different perspectives and help me with breakthroughs, then it's like I've also built in this accountability partnership.
That's cool.
And it has blown my mind. People always say like, oh, AI can't be empathetic. And I believed that before too. I was really skeptical, but I'm like, it's not about empathy being a human emotion. It's more like um, a kind of a structured support system.
Right.
And the focus is always on me 24/7, and usually I'm always focused on the other person, the ideal client, or who am I working with, or all that. And so this is one place that I can just focus all on me and what I'm working towards, and it is there to support me.
Without
So
judgment or without baggage behind it or anything like that. That's or without hidden agendas. Very, very cool. So you were talking about a really, I guess, executable plan to rebuild a brand, understanding who your client is, understanding how you can best serve them. We looked at going high ticket if you wanted to cover that financial aspect, going down the AI advisory path on what sort of content should I be creating and sticking to that schedule, increasing visibility. Do you feel that anybody starting today with a blank YouTube account and a zero Instagram followers could build up a brand and a following?
that's a great question. There's the I feel like this is what I should say to inspire people, and then there's my real answer. So I'm gonna give
I'd
you my real
love to hear
answer.
both.
Yeah, I'll give both. Okay, the first answer would be like, if you believe in yourself, you can do anything. I do believe that in my heart. I really do. And so if you just are like, hey, I've got a vision and I'm gonna go all in, then I do believe that everyone can do it. And then there's my kind of deeper answer to that, which is it's not for everyone. Like only because I've worked with so many entrepreneurs at this point,
Mm,
and there have been times when I've worked with an entrepreneur who is just like, I just want to do the thing that I love doing, but all this marketing and sales and putting myself out there, I don't want to do that. And so my honest coaching for them has been, well, maybe entrepreneurship isn't for you. And I'm
interesting.
not saying this to rain on anybody's parade, but I could see them just suffering and hating being an entrepreneur and where they'd rather show up for a job where they're doing what they love, but not having to deal with being a business owner and marketing and profit and loss statements and profit margins and funnels and tech and all these things. And so, I think that sometimes with newer entrepreneurs, and again, there might be a range of people that are watching this, and some are very advanced, right? But for newer entrepreneurs, I would say just know that if you're launching a business, it's not just doing the thing you love, it's also about owning a business, launching and owning a business. And even with my business background, when I launched my business, I was thinking, I just want to be my passion. I want to create
Mm,
freedom. I want to create my own schedule, which was true. And I didn't know what I didn't know at the time about business ownership and all the things that come along with it.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so I think I believe that if you believe in yourself, you can do anything. And I also believe that entrepreneurship's not for everybody.
I completely agree. And I think uh, if you believe in yourself, you can do anything. If entrepreneurship is something that you really want to do, but the path is mixed and fraught with dangers, as we've just said, team is the answer. Like
Team
Team.
and yeah,
I love
team
that.
and systems.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It has to be. It really has to be. Do you feel that the the influencer landscape? So I'm positioning you as an influencer, somebody who has influence over a group of people. Do you feel like the influencer landscape is liable to change significantly over the next couple of years with AI coaches, with AI counseling, with AI driven direction? Do you feel like the job of the influencer will be impacted?
Absolutely. I think it already is, and it will continue to be, especially because there's so much more content that's going to be created that already is being created because we're able to accelerate that process. And so I don't remember the statistics at this point because I remember earlier on I was with a group of AI nerds with myself and we were learning about the statistics. So I don't have the current statistics, but it's supposed to significantly grow in terms of content. And so I think it will take a bit more authenticity and having that uniqueness to really stand out, but also having that level of visibility. So now that
Mm,
we have the ability to have, like, I think of AI as an excuse buster. So now that we have access to AI that can help us to quickly repurpose all of our content on all these platforms, there's just going to be a lot more noise out there. And so I don't say
right.
that to create fear. I just say that to once again gain clarity on who your ideal client is, really speak to that person, and then leverage AI to grow that visibility for your audience.
I think there'll be a lot more choice, with the content that they can consume. And I think, yeah, everyone that I speak to is setting authenticity as the pinnacle. We've got AI deep fake technology where, a person on a video can be saying whatever they can be saying. Like, how do we, that's a good question to ask you. How do we make sure that our authentic voice is the one that's reaching the market?
Yeah. I've actually been exploring this a lot lately because I've been all about authenticity for many years, like authentic marketing, authentic messaging. But just in like very recent months, even, my partner Ken and I know Ken, we've had a deeper conversation around empathy. And
Mm,
so I'm going to be speaking a lot more into this in the coming months, and that it's not just about your authentic message, it's about your empathetic message, meaning deeply understanding your ideal client and consistently speaking to them and speaking their language. And that's when they feel seen and heard and understood and loved and cared for and supported, is when they see someone, whether you're the face of your brand or you have somebody that's the face of your brand, or your brand is the message, your brand has the message on your website. But if it really speaks to the heart of your ideal client, where they feel seen and heard, they're much more likely to start following you or your brand. And if they resonate with you and they feel a connection with you or your brand, then they're more likely to become fans and followers and ultimately long-term clients or
Ultimately,
customers.
clients, yeah, yeah, definitely. So speaking of which, I mean, there's always going to be a percentage of people that go from listening to subscribing to engaging to purchasing, and I know that for amyyamada.com, for your business that you've got multiple, I guess, ways of people engaging with you on a professional level. So going from being an observer, from somebody in the stands watching the show, all the way through to getting into the classes, getting into the coaching, getting into the online courses, etc. How do you go about monetizing the following that you're building?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I believe in really creating thoughtful offers. So, one of my favorite things is creating, designing offers that are irresistible to your ideal client, right?
Yeah.
So, the way that I like to come up with that initially is to put myself in their shoes, because oftentimes our clients are a version of us in our past, right? There was some, I don't remember who said this, but some mentor said, your best client is you 3 years ago. And I always say give or take. It doesn't have to be 3 years, but when I think about who I serve for the most part, I'm like, yeah, we do have a connection. So I put myself in their shoes. I think about where they are now, and I think about if I was there right now, what do I wish someone would create for me to help me achieve my goals and to overcome my problems and my pain points and limiting
Awesome.
beliefs?
Yeah.
And so I come from that standpoint of like, if I could wave a magic wand, and sometimes if I'm too in my head, then I'll even just be my own self and think about a mentor or a person that I really admire. And I think, well, if Walt were to come up with a program for me, right, what would that look like? Right.
Sure.
And so I would put together my wish list of what a program, product, or service would be. And then I sit with and I start to feel excited about it. I start to feel like, oh, that would be such an I would invest in that in a heartbeat. That's when you know you got an irresistible offer.
Nice.
So then you
Yeah,
kind of
amazing.
refine it for your audience. And my best offers have come from that kind of heart's desire, like, oh, this would be the coolest offer, whether it's a retreat or a done for you service or a done with you experience or a group coaching program or online course, whatever it is, membership, whatever it is, right? It's like, this is it. Like
This is the
you
one
gotta,
that you would
gotta
you would pull
feel
the credit card
it
out
up.
for.
Yep, exactly. So when you can do that for your audience, and even if you don't have an audience, like initially when I was gaining clarity on who my ideal client was, I started meeting with people, and whether it was a solo entrepreneur or having a meeting at the headquarters of Starbucks here in Seattle, it's like, okay, what is it that they're working on? What is it that they need? So I would always think about what's the offer that I believe will be irresistible for them. So I'd
Amazing.
put an outline of that. And that's how I'd start to monetize. And then over time, of course, you grow your list and then you can nurture them. Now, what I like to do is invite my audience to a workshop. I do at least one workshop per month, if not more. And when I say workshop, that could be workshop, webinar, masterclass. I know we all use different terms,
Mm.
but I invite people to a workshop that I host on Zoom. I pour value into them. And then I make an offer and I have a link where they can step into the offer. Usually it's 3 months in our Powerhouse AI community, and then they continue on beyond that if they choose to. And then we do some Q&A. So I believe in being non-salesy and non-pitchy, but really being generous first and providing value and then making an offer. So
And I
those are
think
some
that's
ways.
why you've got the following that you have, because like if we follow that journey that you've consistently built over the last 13 years, it's understanding who the people are out there. I love that your ideal customer is you 3 years ago, 5 years ago, where it's you, at a previous point, because that gives you the understanding of what would have been great for me back then is this. So seeing that evolution for you of creating that desirable next step for the ideal audience, I can see that just resonating over the years of what you've built there. And of course, now with the Powerhouse AI community, I think you've got thousands of people in there now. Just
So not in Powerhouse AI. I've got thousands of people, on my email list. Powerhouse AI, we actually just did this is a newer community. So we did
cool.
a soft launch for that in the fall, and it is quite intimate right now because we really want to just focus on those who are really serious about integrating AI into their business in a
Right.
very like empathetic, aligned, authentic way.
Nice. Are they
So yeah.
feeding you ideas as well? Are you walking
Oh
out and going,
yeah.
oh my God, I didn't even know that was
Yeah,
possible?
it really does have the spirit of a true mastermind, and the people in there are they're just salt of the earth. They're just great
That's
people.
cool.
And so we're
That's
sharing with one another what we're working on. We're facilitating it. And yeah, right now it is a more intimate group. So we've got that. We've got our ideal client head of products that we have been selling to both our audience, and now we also license that product into other companies and communities. And then I know we've had a chance to collaborate with you and Johan on our bot leads product, which has been cool to bring in kind of what you've been doing with what we've been doing and integrating that with Ideal Client Handbook. And so we're helping businesses to, find their prospective leads for their businesses. So there's definitely been a through line of integrating AI and connecting with and finding your true ideal client and nurturing them and caring for them so that they become return clients or super fans. And that way you have a great reputation.
Well, I'm always looking for sound bites, and I think that was just it. Like that's the formula. Identifying the client, helping them understand, connecting with your ideal profile, like your ideal client, and delivering that great value for them. So, Amy, that formula, I think you've got that dialed in, which is again clear to see. Where will we see you grow over the next sort of 12 months? You were saying getting more exposure as to who you are, getting onto more platforms. What
Yeah.
will we see in your space?
Yeah, we're still kind of in the infant stages of gaining clarity on the vision of the YouTube platform initially, because I know that once we have that, then everything else will be repurposed from that. But if I were to kind of check in with like both my experience and my intuition, I believe that it will just be truly about empowering entrepreneurs to embrace integrating AI into their business, but with a focus on empathy. Like that is something that I haven't heard people speak into, and the deeper conversations I've been having with Ken and my inner circle, I'm like that to me represents what I've been doing all along
Mm,
with what I call deep human connection, which to me is the root of all of this in life and in business. And when we care enough about the other person and seek to understand the other person And we can leverage AI even to do that, which I know sounds weird, but I've done it and it's incredible to see what's possible. Then it will become very easy to grow your own visibility and to call forward your best clients. So I'd say YouTube's coming up. I see a book in the future. It might not be a this year thing, but I see a book in the future and continue to speak on both in person and online stages. So.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, we can't wait to see it. Guys, if you're listening, you're watching wherever you are, you're on the treadmill, in the car, whatever it might be, check out the show notes. That's amyyamada.com. Amy is just powering through the real leadership that it takes to be an entrepreneur today and to help drive growth through communities and understanding empathetically what clients are looking for and what they need and being able to move forward with them. So Amy, I absolutely salute you. Thank you so much for jumping on with us. Guys, amyyamada.com, jump on and follow along with Amy's journey and understanding where she's going. I think there's a heck of a lot of value there. We can't wait to keep in touch with you, Amy, and seeing what's going on, and hopefully come back and speak to us in a little while and pop back and do another episode 2.0 on the show and let us know how that growth is going. But meantime, guys, give it up for Amy. Thank you so much for your time, and we can't wait to see the growth. Thank you so much.
All right. See you soon. Thank you.